And welcome back into NFL Daily Live. I am Tom Downey, producer Chris, once again behind the scenes. We're back after a little hiatus due to the NFL Combine and all the Chat Sports crew in attendance and all the videos that were going out, etc. Hope you guys enjoyed our coverage. And we're right back into the thick of things with NFL free agency set to begin in less than a week. And one of the biggest names, in theory, set to hit the open market, still time for things to change, is Kirk Cousins. Of the top two teams, and the third option of right in for somebody else, who will end up signing Kirk Cousins? F for the Falcons, V for the Vikings, or O for other. You can type in O for that, or type in a comment for who that other team ends up being. So looking at you, Chad Jones. Let's see. I've got, Chad Jones is in the live chat. Love to see it happen. Love to see it. Love to see it. Took me a second there. Assuming it's the same Chad Jones. F for the Falcons, V for the Vikings, O for other. Right now, Falcons at 43%, Vikings at 41%, 16% say other. Let's see. I see Falcons from John Garcia. It is Chad Jones in the live chat. I love it, Chad. Happy to have you here, my guy. Mark's putting in all of his quarterback predictions. I love that too. John's thinking it's a chance that it's the Raiders. In the end, I think like 16% chance for other. Probably feels about right. I'd be a little bit surprised if it wasn't the Falcons or Vikings, but that's kind of the whole point, right? That sometimes crazy stuff happens. Plenty of buzz coming out of the Combine on these two teams, the Falcons, and I think we'll know with Minnesota, like once the contract voids in free agency, it can get going. I would pick the Falcons. Wouldn't rule out Minnesota. Because if it's not Minnesota, boy, they're in a weird spot. Because they're going to be able to trade for Justin Fields. And then it's Russell Wilson or a trade up for a quarterback. It's a little bit dicey there. So keep your votes coming at the pinned comment, F, V, or O. We will also spend time on the quarterback situation involving Russell Wilson, now released from Denver, which will be made official once the new league year begins because of just contractual timing to make it a post-June 1st cut. Where will Russell Wilson end up signing this NFL offseason? Get those votes or predictions in for me in the comments. Appreciate Chad. Speaking of Broncos, Mark's got Daniel Jones to Denver. I think Sean Payton might hate him. Mark's got Vikings. Christopher Flores has Seattle. Could you imagine? I know my guy Tyler Jones talked about that today. It'd be wild if he went back to Seattle. It would be also really weird. Falcons, see it. I think Minnesota makes sense in terms of like finding a spot that works. Pittsburgh should make sense, Joey. And I think Raiders also make sense a lot there, John. I don't know if Arthur Smith and the Steelers want him. Like Arthur Smith allegedly didn't like him coming out of Ohio State. That's why the Falcons passed on him, allegedly. It was a situation involved for the Steelers that I think they want to try to make Kenny Pickett a thing. And I think Russ is going to want to be a starter somewhere. So several spots that have or could add a young quarterback might not make sense for the veteran mindset there of Russ being like the Jacoby Brissett style. I think he wants to be a starter, and he'll take less. The offset language means he's not going to get more than what he's already making this year. So he'll go very cheap and get the guaranteed starting spot, in theory. Now, today's Super Chat menu breaks down like this. $5 is an entry into the Team Gear raffle. Obviously, we missed some live shows last month. We will extend that for at least 2 more live shows and not raffle it off quite yet. Several entries so far. I can't specify the exact team gear. Like, ideally, it's the t-shirt hat combo, but it might not be in your size and might not be for the team available, so we'll give you options if you end up winning. $10, I'll do a shot for you guys. $20 for a beer bong. Much cheaper prices than it is on the Cowboys Report because, it's just not the same audience on the Chat Sports main channel, so we're going to make it a little bit more affordable there. If you want to get me hammered on a Tuesday, we can make that happen. Who will end up trading for Justin Fields? We'll spend some time on this one as well in the rumors roundup, and technically speaking, in the mock draft that we'll break down from the great Dane Brugler on today's show. Mark says Giants. Man, I bet if you could tell the Giants this time, like, tell them what happened with Daniel Jones this year and the team, and they go, hey, you can trade for Justin Fields this year or have DJ under $40 million on their cap hit. Man, I think they would like to have Fields at that point. Falcons in there. If they don't get Kirk, I think Fields is a Falcon. And I kind of thought that was going to be the number one option, but not the case at this stage, I guess. Pittsburgh, again, it makes sense. I'd rather go with Fields than Pickett. That's where we're at. Raiders or Giants? The last I heard was that the Raiders aren't out on Fields despite hiring Luke Getsy. I don't know how well that fits, but if they're going to have interest in Jaden Daniels, as they clearly do, they have interest in Fields too. Raiders or Giants? Also makes sense. Patriots, if they don't go quarterback at 3 or J.J. McCarthy. Okay. Let's see. Chad Jones says Tua for the Dolphins and Justin to Miami. Ooh. My issue is I don't know if Fields fits that great with what Mike McDaniel wants to do. I think he might be a better fit and maybe Mike would adjust his offense properly and make it work. But I don't know if that's an ideal team fit there. And that's kind of the danger part of this Fields conversation. Like the market, if things go the wrong way with Kirk to Atlanta, Steelers say we don't want to get a better quarterback into the fold. The Vikings make sense, but like, is it a scheme fit? And also, like, would the Bears trade him in division? And if the Raiders say, we got Getsy, we don't want him, all of a sudden your viable mark kind of shrinks a little bit down and kind of quickly. We'll spend some more time on Fields and Russ and free agents, but we'll talk draft as well. Chris, it kind of got to the point at the first off the question, will J.J. McCarthy go in the top 10? Why for yes and for no? It kind of got to the point at the combine, I felt like, where everyone was saying McCarthy was going to go earlier than we thought, or you as in like the generic you thought, that I think it kind of gained too much steam. Of like, he could go top 5. And I'm like, but is he really? Like, I could see him going top 10. Because there's that kind of glut of teams, the no particular order, the Broncos, the Vikings, maybe even the Saints too, that are like, we got to go get our guy and jump the other team. And Falcons in that category too, depending on what happens here with a veteran quarterback like Cousins or Fields, that I could see a trade-up happening. But because I know he's going to interview well, et cetera, there are still flaws in his game, obviously. That's why he's not the consensus number 1 overall pick, whatever. But I don't see him going top 5. Like it has been floated out there as of late. Or even, he's number 3. And I saw someone say if he'd put up Jaden Daniels' numbers at LSU, but like, yeah, would he? Because he didn't have the same production on the ground that Daniels did. Doesn't have the same ability, I should say. So we'll go top 10. Why for yes and for no? Like Mark Curran says, Raiders going to trade up to get J.J. McCarthy. I could see it. I really could. Okay, so get your votes in. Why for yes and for no here on today's show. Before we get into the live edition, if you want your team to make a splash free agent signing, or in the case of the Cowboys, make a free agent signing, then like today's video right now. The more likes we get for your respective team, the more likely it is your team ends up doing the thing that you want them to do. Of note here, Eric Kendricks has been released by the Chargers. He is so a Cowboy. Like, that one just makes sense. The Chargers have cut him. We'll update you guys during our live shows as news happens, because I think there's going to be updates that happen. Like, I think there's going to be news of this happened. Basically every day as teams get through things and make their decisions. So we'll keep you guys covered here on today's show. NFL news and rumors, the first portion, including the franchise tag tracker. Got a lot of updates on that front. A mailbag. 2 ways to get on the show. Use hashtag NFL. That'll get you in the queue for producer Chris to pick your question. Saw a couple of those, by the way. But if you have other ones, make sure you use the hashtag NFL, or else it just kind of gets buried a little bit. And we'll break down Dane Brugler's mock draft with trades. There's a lot of them in this mock draft. All coming up live here on NFL Daily. Today's NFL Daily is made possible by Manscaped. This St. Patrick's Day, get your new Lucky Charm with the Lawnmower 5.0. 20% off and free shipping over at manscaped.com/chat when you use Manscaped, or when you use promo code chat at manscaped.com/chat. If you guys are excited for NFL free agency, which I think all of you should be, then type me in the comment section. Let's flood it and show who's hyped for the start of NFL free agency in less than 1 week. Let's go to the latest on Kirk Cousins to begin today's show. Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk reporting that the indications are that Kirk Cousins is considering moving his family to Atlanta. Now, Cousins has been heavily linked to the Falcons for a good portion of this offseason. His play style fits the ideal play style of new offense coordinator Zach Robinson. After all, they both come from the Rams tree, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, Robinson in LA. And this Falcons roster overall is in pretty good shape to win now. And adding a veteran like Cousins, despite the very valid fears of the Achilles tear, makes sense for a team that maybe doesn't want to try to have the young quarterback with the rest of the roster in place. Here's what Florio reports. We can't get into specifics for now, but we're getting very credible indications that Cousins is seriously considering moving his family to Atlanta, which would mean, obviously, he'd be signing with the Falcons. The Falcons have always been the top alternative to the Vikings for Cousins, who becomes an unrestricted free agent next Wednesday. And for good reason. His wife, Julie, grew up in Alpharetta, I think that's how you pronounce it. Maybe a harder P, I'm not sure. In Georgia, her parents still live there. Look, I think this makes sense for both parties involved. Cousins has always shown he will take the largest contract, which of course is how most players tend to operate in free agency. And you can even argue, you take the rosters minus the quarterback, the Falcons might be in better shape than Minnesota is. And that Falcons team in an NFC South that I believe to be extremely gettable can make some noise, or at least be a playoff team. And if you're a playoff team in most spots, your head coach has much more job security than the last guy ended up having. Cousins, had he not gotten hurt this year, only played in about half the season, we would have been talking about him in the MVP conversation. There is a very real chance he might have taken the spot of Dak Prescott as the second place MVP getter. Like that's how good, or even on the second team all-pro team, like that's how good Cousins had been on an admittedly not very good Vikings team. He was better than he had been the past 3 seasons. So I get it from the Falcons' standpoint. The other angle here is this. Losing Kirk Cousins would be a significant blow to Minnesota. I think there is some good job stability between Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell, but they don't have a quarterback right now, which should raise some red flags, because is it going to be McCarthy? Do you trade up for him? Do you sign Russell Wilson? Well, it's a little bit dicey. So this is today's pinned comment. Where will Kirk Cousins end up signing? F for the Falcons, V for the Vikings, or O for other? If the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. More on Russell Wilson. I still can't take the eye black seriously in the profile picture. I'm sorry. I just can't. Something like I would do as a kid because I thought it was cool, but I'm also, I digress. He got cut on Monday. It's a post-June 1st cut. So $35.4 million dead money this year, nearly $50 million next year. And it would have been more if they hadn't cut him because he has a guaranteed salary coming up here. Now, Wilson could end up playing for the vet minimum with a new team because offset language in his contract. He can't kind of double up on what he's getting already, which means, hey, he's not going to end up getting, $40 million on the open market, so you can just wait and pay him the vet minimum, and then he gets a guaranteed starting contract or starting job if those two sides agree to it, whatever. Here are the updated odds on where Russell Wilson plays. Look, Pittsburgh makes sense, but I don't know if Pittsburgh feels the same way. More on that in a little bit. Then it's the Raiders. I could see it if they don't think they can get a way to go up and get Jaden Daniels in particular. Falcons, Patriots, Minnesota. If the Falcons, whoever doesn't land Kirk Cousins, Falcons, Minnesota certainly makes sense to me. I think Tampa's going to keep Baker Mayfield. Commanders, Titans, Giants, Bears. If the market is non-existent, maybe as the veteran backup, but I think Russ wants to start. Now, there have been multiple reports now at this stage that the Steelers don't have interest in Russell Wilson or the other top quarterbacks, that they don't want to go get Fields. Now, maybe that's all smoke and mirrors. It is smoke season, after all, from now until later in April. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me for Pittsburgh's angle. But if it is true, cross them off the list, give them Ryan Tannehill, and Wilson's got to go elsewhere, although allegedly Wilson has interest in Pittsburgh, which I think would make sense for him. They're a 9-win team with bad quarterback play. He thinks they could probably make some noise with him at the helm. So more predictions. Where will Russell Wilson sign this offseason? Go ahead and get those predictions in for me in the comment section right now. Today's episode is made possible by Manscaped. It is the top St. Patrick's Day Shamrock shavers. This year, don't just chase rainbows, make your own pot of gold and grow your little leprechaun with the leaders in below the kilt care. Yeah, it's great. Love Manscaped. Say goodbye to your Clover 4s with a new Lawnmower 5.0 and let your confidence shine bright. Embrace the luck of the Irish and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping when you use code CHAT, C-H-A-T, over at manscaped.com/chat. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. But this St. Patrick's Day, make a little of your own luck and make sure your little hairy leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped. We appreciate them sponsoring us here at NFL Daily. One more time, it's manscaped.com/chat. When you use promo code CHAT at checkout, should be automatically applied, but if not, that's the code for you. 20% off and free shipping. Let's talk Justin Fields now, as the trade market, it might have to wait a little bit. And I don't think it's as strong as the Bears and probably Fields himself thought it was going to be. That was like the early, at one point, I think the Shifters saying they were going to get a 1 for him, and that's not going to happen. And I think a 2 is still very doable, but it might not be the bidding war of a 2 that the Bears had been hoping for. Because of the things we just talked about, Russell Wilson, where does Kirk Cousins go? That takes out 2 of the possible destinations. So the updated odds here for Justin Fields. Falcons are still the betting favorite at plus 110. But if they get Kirk Cousins, cross them off the list. I think Fields is a much better quarterback than Kenny Pickett. If the reports of Pittsburgh not having interest are true and not them trying to not bid against themselves for a quarterback, then that takes them off the list. Every indication coming out of the combine was that the Bears are going to take a quarterback, almost certainly Caleb Williams at number 1. So cross with. Listen, by the way, if the answer is we're not getting great value for Fields back, that's a good sign that, yeah, you definitely have to take the quarterback. Not, oh, we should keep him means no, you should trade him and get whatever you can. Minnesota is intriguing, but are they going to go after a division rival with the Bears, trade him there? If no one else wants him, maybe. Raiders, if you are okay with Getsy still as the helm, that makes sense. But that's kind of dangerous to me. Maybe Denver is a dark horse. I don't know if it's a great fit in the Sean Payton scheme. I'd love to see him in New York. I think he's better than Daniel Jones. Do the Giants feel that way? And would the Patriots go quarterback at 3 or take Fields and trade down? That, I think at plus 1,600, that's the value for Fields. His numbers are still inconsistent, but he is a dynamic dual threat. He can run. He has the arm, but the old timing-based offense thing wasn't always the most successful for him. It depends on the spot. I think he is a starting caliber quarterback. It's a matter of, is the team fit correct enough? And how much other bidding wars are going on against him? If teams want to be silly and stick with their worst quarterback, Giants, Pittsburgh, suddenly things get a little bit thinner for Fields. So prediction time. Who will end up trading for Justin Fields? Go ahead and sound off for me in the comment section of today's video. Finally, some news here. Franchise tag candidates franchise tag have been applied. The candidates are now official. Michael Pittman was the last guy kind of at the buzzer. $21.82 million owed this year, barring a long-term extension. The extension deadline is after the draft, by the way. Kyle Duggar, note here, was actually transition tagged. That gives the Patriots the right of first refusal on a deal. They can match or let him leave. There's no draft pick compensation, although they can rescind the tender and still get the comp pick if they need to. That comes in about $3.5 million less on the tag, so it's fair for him. Jaylon Johnson gets tagged. We'll see how close the Bears and Johnson get to a longer-term deal. Josh Allen gets the outside linebacker tag. No surprise there. Means Calvin Ridley will be a free agent, barring an extension getting done in the next couple of days. Justin Madubuike with the Ravens, as expected. Antoine Winfield, as expected. Tampa now has a few more days to get a Baker Mayfield contract done, or he will hit the open market, which could be a little bit dicey. Brian Burns also getting the outside linebacker tag, which is more than the defensive end tag. I know, it's dumb. L'Jarius Sneed tagged. Trade is a possibility there. And T. Higgins, who got kind of announced pretty early on the tag, which was raised some eyebrows, let's put it that way, also gets tagged for $21.8 million. So what do you guys like more? Draft, trade, or free agency? D, T, or F? Go ahead and sound off in the comment section of today's show. D, T, or F? Chad Jones says T. Lore says D. Richard says D. I rank them probably DTF, although I am a Cowboy fan and they don't do anything in free agency. So, but draft is by far number one. Trades in the NBA, though. This is, of course, NFL focused. Brian says DTF, all thanks. There you go. Chucho Nation says fart agency. Might be a medical condition. Teas from Tony and Yoden and more teas in there. Keep the comments coming. And if you have questions for this upcoming mailbag, get them in right now as well. 2 ways to get on the show. Number 1, just use hashtag NFL. Puts you in the queue, and it depends on producer Chris picking your question. And then it's, so I see Roy Williams in there. It's a good one. And hashtag NFL, any NFL team, of course, draft, free agency, we got you guys covered. Or super chat. You super chat, you are guaranteed to get on the show. We are still doing the month-long, which is going to be maybe more like 2 months because we missed some days and then free agency. So maybe we'll make it a 2-month raffle. Some team gear of your choosing. We've got some options for you guys. T-shirt, hat combo, etc. $10 for a shot. The team gear entry is $5. $20 for a beer bong as well. So get your questions in via hashtag Cowboys or by skipping the line altogether with a super, or hashtag NFL. I did it again, didn't I? Hashtag NFL. It was funny, we're at the Combine and I made the comment of like, sometimes I say hashtag, I say like Cowboys instead of NFL. And first words out of my mouth were Cowboys instead of NFL. It just... very dumb of me sometimes. But get your questions in right now via hashtag NFL or by super chatting. NFL free agency is just a few days away. So should we be live for the start of NFL free agency this year? If you think we should be, like the video right now. From Joey, contract if the Vikings were on him. Danielle Hunter, $3.99 million to stick back with some Minnesota Vikings. I think this is a voice to text gone wrong. I'm going to answer this as, how much for Danielle Hunter contract? It's a good question. I think he's going to get some good money on the open market. I would not be surprised if this kind of came into the $20 million price tag range, and the Vikings might be facing a bit of a mini reset as opposed to continuing to pay their slightly older core. From Tony, will the Chiefs extend Chris Jones? I think that gets done. I think they felt a lot better about paying Chris Jones than they did getting a deal done with Sneed. Jones made public comments on that front as well. It's Super Bowl, maybe not sober, so it's not quite a binding contract. But I do think in the end, Chris Jones gets a deal done with the Chiefs to stick around. From Richard, the number 1 Michigan fan. What do you think Ryan Bates will be on the Bears? Center or backup? I view that move, the trade for Ryan Bates for a 5th-round pick, I think that's the type of move where if you have to, you can have him as your starting center if free agency and the draft don't go the way that they were supposed to. Now, if they do balance this out correctly and they do find other pieces, then I think you feel pretty good about him being, your 6th or 7th offensive lineman. But in an ideal world, I think he's your backup, but it's clearly someone Ryan Poles has liked, and I think they'll end up being okay. From Cody, is Derrick Henry a Raven? I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if Saquon went to Houston and Jacobs stuck in Las Vegas, and after allegedly getting close to trading for him before it got poo-pooed, allegedly by ownership, if Derrick Henry ends up in Baltimore. The scheme fit, I think, actually does work with Todd Monken in there, and I think it'd be a fun, kind of aggressive move for the Ravens. At least as long as the contract works out, you're not paying him, $20 million or something crazy. 2-part ask for today's pinned comment, so make sure you guys are paying attention. I want you to, in all the same comment at the pinned comment, shout out your favorite team and who you want them to sign. So if the ad comes on YouTube, it's actually great timing. Take advantage of it. Tell me your favorite team and who you want them to sign. A $2 super chat from Tito. Thank you, Tito. Bears need to trade down. 5 picks are not going to cut it. It might help a little bit that your 5 picks are all in the top 125 of this year's draft. So, and I actually don't love the day 3 value once it gets to the 6th-ish round, maybe some 5th-round picks I like. I think what might make the most sense for a trade down is, depending on who's on the board at 9, that could be a great trade down spot, or even trade down some on 3rd round, and maybe one of your 4th-round picks get moved for more assets there. But I actually like the top end of this draft more than I do the back end, so I wouldn't be mad if they stayed put either. But I do get it. You'd like to have some more picks, but some of those 6th, 7th rounders I'm not as concerned about not having. From Finn's Fan, does the Baker release free up money for Wilkins so he can stay in Miami? I think that'd be an ideal outcome. You find a way to keep Christian Wilkins. But Miami had to free up money anyway. That's why Baker had been mentioned by some as a potential cut candidate. If it's not specifically for Wilkins, it does free up money to sign or re-sign somebody else, a Robert Hunt, a Connor Williams on a cheaper deal, adding some defensive tackle help that's cheaper than Christian Wilkins. So it might not directly correlate to Christian Wilkins, but I think it will help them make some more moves, whether re-signings or signings for their own players. If you guys like our NFL mailbags, we appreciate that. And we would appreciate it if you haven't already liked today's video. The more likes we get on a video, the more views we get, the more subscribers we get, the more audience we get, and the more we get to grow and continue to make new hires here at Chat Sports. Christopher Flores, what is the % chance the Patriots win back the AFC East in 2024? I think it's pretty low. I would be surprised if the Patriots won the division. They have a lot of overhaul to do right now. A rookie quarterback in a division of, in theory, healthy Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, and a Dolphins team that I think should still be pretty good. I think it's more like the Patriots finish last than they finish first. From Lore, what position should the Niners draft in the first round? If all things are equal, I would vote for offensive line. Now, maybe there's not a lineman you want there and you go in a different direction, but it's a very good offensive line class. And I think there's a good chance there is somebody on the board who fits what San Francisco wants to do. So if you can get the balance here, I think offensive line would make the most sense. Again, from Christopher Flores, what round will Texas running back Jonathan Brooks be drafted? He's my favorite in this year's class. Had he been healthy, I think he would have been RB1 or at least RB2 on the consensus, like most people's boards. There's obviously, you never get consensus when it comes to the NFL draft. There's always disagreements. That's what makes it so much fun. I would say late round 2 and then more likely round 3 is where he ends up going, probably as one of the first few backs off the board in this year's class. From Andrew, where will Saquon Barkley sign? It's a good question, Andrew. I am going to shoot my shot and say Saquon Barkley is a Texan. Been just enough noise on that front that I think that makes a ton of sense for all parties involved. The Texans are not paying their quarterback anything. They can afford to have that running back contract, which I think actually could be a bit of a value because the market swung so far in the other direction, it kind of becomes more balanced from that perspective. It's more feasible. I'll shoot my shot on Houston. What do you guys think? Who lands Saquon Barkley in NFL free agency? Great job building that on the fly, producer Chris. Sound off for me in the comments section right now. From Chad Jones. Who? There you go. Shouldn't Miami have tagged Wilkins and traded him for a first and third or fourth rounder to the Texans? There is a reason why you don't see as many tag and trade deals as the NBA, like as an example, like the sign and trade. And the big reason is some of the contractual obligations that these teams tend to have to deal with. The biggest issue specifically for Miami and Wilkins is the salary cap space. Even after the moves they've made, I believe this factors in the Jerome Baker release. If not, take off $8 million, whatever. The Dolphins are still like $18 million over the cap. So they're going to have more moves that will come that will get them down to a proper figure. But they would have had to have freed up an additional $20+ million to tag Wilkins to make the trade actually happen. I would agree that in an ideal world, this is what you do. Even if you only get like a second round pick back, which I think Wilkins is worth more than that, it's more than you're going to get via the comp pick process. And I actually wouldn't be shocked if Wilkins goes to Houston. I think that's a great fit for him. It makes so much sense to me. So in an ideal world, yes. I think because of the Dolphins' cap situation, which I think they could have found a way to do it. It would have been a little bit more complicated, but they could have found a way to do it. That would have made a ton of sense to me. Maybe in the end, the Dolphins are holding out hope that they can get a deal done with Wilkins in free agency because an extension with no tag actually impacts the cap less than a straight-up tag would have done. But in an ideal world, absolutely. Well, I'll have you guys cover with more NFL news and rumors on free agency, trades, and of course the NFL draft. Sound off for me in the comments, or go sub down in the comments if you haven't already. From Roy Williams, should the Cowboys sign recently released linebacker Eric Kendricks? There's the Mike Zimmer connection. He's still good, not in his prime. Somebody in that Mike Zimmer or in that Kendricks tier makes sense to me. I think Aziz Al-Shaair fits that mold. Josie Jewell, who's a younger option. I would be kind of flabbergasted and angry if the Cowboys didn't sign a linebacker. So I think that is a path they have to pursue. And I think someone like Eric Kendricks who knows that scheme fits super well. Brian Garrison. What wide receiver in free agency do you think would be a great third wideout for the Eagles? That's kind of the issue. It's not a good free agency class at wide receiver. Someone like Darnell Mooney would be an elite third receiver for Philadelphia, right? Darnell Mooney is like the fifth best receiver in free agency. I think he's going to get more than just the cheapo third receiver. I think for Philadelphia, in a good wide receiver class, going down and drafting somebody might make the most sense. From Max, is Christian Wilkins or Chris Jones more likely to leave? I'm going to go with Wilkins by a little bit. I think the Chiefs will get something done with Chris Jones. And I think Wilkins is potentially driving more of a hard bargain to get the biggest contract possible. I don't know if Jones is doing that, and even if he is, the Chiefs are probably still going to find a way to prioritize that one in a way the Dolphins might not be doing with Wilkins. Who do you think is the best free agent in this year's upcoming NFL free agency class? Sound off for me in the comments right now. From Thumbs Up Kevin, what's the market for Ryan Tannehill? Cheap backup. He's going to be a Steeler, right? Like, isn't he going to go back up Kenny Pickett with or without Mason Rudolph in Pittsburgh and probably get a chance to start? Like, that feels like what's going to happen with him. Or he's going to go to somewhere like, I don't know, Chicago and be a backup to Caleb Williams, or go be that vet mentor, which he didn't want to do earlier and now is kind of trending down that path a little bit quicker. Mark Kearns. The Bears could get a haul to go from 1 to 2 and still reset the quarterback clock, with Drake May. If they have Drake May graded higher than Caleb Williams, that's what they should do. And this is, I tend to adopt this approach, like if I'm doing, fantasy drafts or Madden drafts, like these two guys are the same, let me get more assets. That's not how NFL teams tend to operate, specifically at quarterback. When it comes to quarterback, if they think player A is better than player B, they're going to take player A. Now, if they think May's better, which there's a non-zero chance that's the case, it's possible, then yeah, trade down, get those assets, and ride with Drake May. I wouldn't be concerned at all about the needy and air. If you got your guy and move down. So I don't think that's what happens, but I wouldn't rule it out completely. Poppy Chulo sits. Thank you, my friend, for the super chat. Bears can get 2 first-round picks for the Jaylon Johnson franchise tag. If somebody offers him a deal and the Bears don't match it, yes. Now, the flip side is no one's going to do that for Jaylon Johnson. A great player. No one's going to trade 2 first-round picks for him right now. That's just kind of like the default language. It's true for all the guys that got tagged this year. No one's going to make that offer. The franchise tag 99 times out of 100, outside of like some agreed to trades, that player just plays at least a year with the current team. Every now and then you'll see an agreed to trade. Let's say hypothetically the Niners come in and say, we'll give you a first-round pick for Jaylon Johnson and some other stuff, and we'll give him a big fat new deal. Bears say, sure. That's doable. But you're not going to get 2 first-round picks for him. Now, when free agency first gets going, we will call it the legal tampering period on Monday, what player will be the first player to sign? Get those predictions in for me in the comment section of today's show. Who's the first player to end up signing in free agency? What agent says, okay, we've done enough of the waiting for the tampering that we did at the Combine to pass? Who signs first? I like Mark Kearns, Jonnu Smith to Pittsburgh. I like it. Chad Jones says Wilkins. Man, that'd be kind of frustrating. Richard says Derrick Henry. I won't count re-signings, Finns fans. So I won't count Robbie Chosen on that one. I'll kind of leave him. Leave outside signings. How about that? We'll clarify it a little bit to make it more fun. Some more Wilkins comments coming in. Ooh, AJ Epinesa from MP. That's a good one. That's kind of what it normally ends up being, like that middle tier free agent who gets a surprisingly large contract from somebody else. I'm gonna go with middle or tier free agent. Probably should have thought about this before I asked the question to everybody else there. Well, A.J. Brown's under contract. He's not going to go anywhere. I think it'd be something. How about Cam Curl to the Titans, which is what I saw a buddy of mine claim. Well, I think that would be a fun one. Oh, wait a minute. How about Dorrance Armstrong to the Commanders? As John Garcia says, me to the Commanders. Endo Bleed says Barkley to the Bears. I'll go Barkley to the Texans pretty early on. Now, maybe not on day one, but that running back market's going to be really, really interesting as things move forward. So get your predictions in. First player to sign when NFL free agency opens up here in just a little bit. NFL free agency is about to begin, folks. So we're about to break down a mock draft from Dane Brugler. Everything's going to change in the draft as free agency gets going. So make sure you don't miss out. Hit that sub button right now. We're breaking down the latest Dane Brugler mock draft with a bunch of trades. Dane was wheeling and dealing on this one. So make sure you pay attention for the movement that happens, not 1, not 2, not 3, but like 7 times in this mock draft. No movement at number 1. Caleb Williams goes to the Chicago Bears. Dane saying, what he told us on our interview, which was great if you didn't get a chance to check it out, that the expectation is Williams ends up being a Bear. The Commanders at number 2, Drake May. They have not made up their mind, and they won't. They'll take their time, even if the Bears go, we're going to take Caleb Williams between Drake May, Jaden Daniels, etc. But I think there's a good chance that in the end, the path that these teams pursue, the Commanders are going to go quarterback. It's a matter of what quarterback it is. I predict it'll end up being Drake May as well. We'll see how things change, though. The Patriots at 3 trade the pick. The Falcons, which this one might look changeable once free agency gets going, give up their first, their second, and their first next year to jump up to number 3 and take Jaden Daniels out of LSU. I do think there is a very real chance 1, 2, 3 is quarterback in this year's class. It's a matter of who's picking 3 and what's the order of those quarterbacks. Arizona, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. The Cardinals, I think, are going to leak that they're going to have interest in a trade down. If there's a quarterback somebody wants, they'd have interest in getting that big assets. Otherwise, they will happily stand pat and take the best receiver, and I'd argue the best quarterback best player, in this year's class. The Bears jump up at number 5. They get the 5th overall pick. The Chargers trade down for a 3rd and a future 4. And the Bears get Rome Odunze out of Washington. I might have gone Malik Neighbors here, but that's kind of flavor of ice cream to a certain extent. Are you a vanilla guy, or are you a chocolate chip guy, or maybe you're a cookie dough guy? It's all good ice cream. Which dynamic receiver do you want? I think the Bears being aggressive and pairing Caleb Williams with Rome and DJ Moore, really intriguing for an organization that kind of needs to win sooner rather than later. The Giants then, with no quarterbacks, simply take Malik Neighbors. I got Neighbors as receiver 2, and that's not a side against Rome Odunze at all. Both those guys are dynamic studs. Tennessee at 7 trades down as well. Minnesota jumps up to the 7th overall pick in exchange for a 4 and a future 2nd-round pick to take J.J. McCarthy, with the theory being they bring back Cousins on a short-term deal and allow McCarthy to learn and grow behind Cousins. I do think McCarthy is going to go top 15. I think he'll be the 4th quarterback off the board. I don't buy this McCarthy going before Jaden Daniels stuff. So we just keep changing things of Daniels before May. Actually, JJ before Daniels. I don't really buy that's how things are going to end up going. Weird stuff happens. I do think he goes off the board in the top 15, though. Will he go top 10? Y for yes, N for no. It's the pinned comment on today's video. If the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Now, before we get to the Patriots pick at number 8, kind of buried in the article itself was the idea that the Patriots trade their 3rd rounder for Justin Fields. So that is why the Patriots trade away from 3. They don't go quarterback. And instead, in what would be a very Elliott Wolf move, trade down, get assets, and take the offensive lineman. That is Joe Alt. Now, Alt did meet with New England at the Combine. By the way, he told us that. Alt's a plug-and-play option on the left side. I don't know if trading down, not going QB is the best path for them, but I think Alt's a top 5 player in this year's class. The Chargers at number 9, after their own trade down, they get the right tackle option, Talise Fuaga. I think there is a chance he goes off the board before Fashanu. I realized we've been pronouncing his name wrong the whole time when he said it correctly himself at his combine. Fashanu goes number 10 to the Jets. I think Fashanu is a better player than Fuaga. No slight against Fuaga, by the way. But I think right tackle for LA and left tackle for New York actually makes a ton of sense. Tennessee then makes it 4 straight offensive linemen off the board. It's J.C. Latham out of Alabama. He moved pretty well in the positional drills. If I were Tennessee, though, I wouldn't love this because you trade away from the top 2, top 3 offensive linemen and only get a 4 and a future 2. It's not a bad haul, but I think you might have a little bit of buyer's regret if they really do go tackle before you. Brock Bowers off the board here to Denver at number 12. No other quarterbacks in round 1. Maybe they could look to trade back into the round 1 or go up in round 2 for Bo Nix. But I think figuring out where Bowers goes is going to be a little bit tricky. I think he'd be a fun fit in Denver. We know Sean Payton has been able to utilize tight ends, dynamic ones, in the past. NFL jerseys are on sale, folks, for $100. That's right, official Nike NFL jerseys just for $100 at chatsports.com/jersey deal. By the way, Fanatics does offer jersey assurance in case, I don't know, somebody like Justin Fields ends up getting moved on from. They'll have you covered. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. It's chatsports.com/jersey deal. Tons of players, all the teams available for under $100. Finally, a defensive player off the board, Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. He is an absolute dog. I wouldn't be shocked if he was the first corner taken. If I had to shoot my shot, though, I think Dallas Turner ends up being the first defensive player taken in this year's class. He's off the board here from Dane to the Saints at 14. Their issues are trenches. They need to get more talent there. Turner makes sense. We've mocked Brian Thomas to the Colts before with the mindset of, hey, he's gonna be a great athlete, and he was. 4.33 at a shade under 6'3 and 209. Unbelievable size. If you pair him in Indy with Anthony Richardson, that's so much fun. Seattle at 16 trades down. The Steelers, first-round pick, number 16 overall, plus a fifth-rounder, which is just balancing the old trade value chart. Seattle moves down 4 spots and pick up a third-rounder in the process. Remember, they're light on draft picks from the Leonard Williams trade, which was a mistake. The Steelers take Amarius Mims, which would be funny of them moving up a couple spots to take the Georgia offensive tackle. Back-to-back years, they would have done it. But you then kick Broderick Jones left side or vice versa and put Mims on the right side, and that's really good spots. It's a really good spot to be in for Pittsburgh. Love that fit. Another trade here. Philadelphia jumps up for a third and a future fourth. To make note, a much later third than the one the Steelers gave up to get a similar range jump right there. A little bit higher jump, too, for Philadelphia. But 17 overall, they take a corner. Terrion Arnold, who I think is a good fit for what the Eagles want to do on defense with Vic Fangio. Can argue he's the best corner in this year's class, so wouldn't have any complaints about that one. Spoiler alert, we are not yet done with the Dane trades on this one. So how many trades happen in round 1 this year? Get your predictions in for me in the comment section right now. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, 5 tackles already off the board. Instead, they'll go with the top defensive tackle in this mock draft, Byron Murphy out of Texas, who I think would be a nice fit for Cincinnati. The Rams stand pat at 19, simply take Jared Verse out of Florida State. Very good combine testing for him. I think this kind of late teens, worst case early 20s, perfect spot for him. Seattle at 20, Jackson Powers Johnson out of Oregon. John Schneider, 40% of his first-round picks have been offensive linemen. Now, it hasn't been center necessarily, but he's got, I think, some center guard versatility, and O-line is an area of focus for Seattle. Miami at 21, Troy Fontenot. Again, one of these linemen have to slide at least a little bit. There's so many good ones. Fontenot, I think, absolutely could stay at tackle in the NFL. I think he has the length and the ability. But in this scenario, plug him in there at left guard, protect Tua or whoever your long-term quarterback ends up being, and allow the Dolphins to kind of rebuild that offensive line. If you're going to be a quick strike passing game, having a good guard makes a ton of sense for you. And if you want to kick him back out to tackle when Teron Armstead retires, that works as well. Jags trade down and still get Nate Wiggins. The 173 weight is going to be a turnoff for some teams, but also 4'2", 840. So Jags need quarterback help. Makes sense to me. Houston at 23 takes Liatu Latu. The medicals are uncertain. He will not pass for all teams. That's not how it's going to operate. There's a lot of risk involved there with the not being cleared medically by Washington, cleared by UCLA. Talent-wise, I think he's one, if not the best defensive players in this year's class. The risk at 23, I think, makes it worthwhile. Who do you think will end up being the first defensive player drafted? Sound off for me in the comments section right now. Another one. This time, Buffalo jumps up 4 spots, giving up a 3rd-round pick, getting a projected comp pick in the 6th round back as well, to take A.D. Mitchell out of Buffalo. Now, Dane says he's not sold on Mitchell being a culture fit. There are some times where Mitchell seems to check out a little bit, but the upside is incredibly dynamic. A large human who runs fast normally ends up going pretty early. Cooper DeJean just feels like a Packer. We know the Packers have interest in him, by the way, from our Combine conversations. Wouldn't stun me at all there. Graham Barton out of Duke to Tampa Bay here. I don't know if they're going to go interior O-line early again, but I think Barton is a late round 1, early round 2 pick. Darius Robinson out of Missouri. I don't know if he can stay at edge, but I think at minimum he can be a really good kind of, flex piece inside and outside, and that fits what Jonathan Gannon, I think, is looking for in Arizona. So the Cowboys trade down and still find their new left tackle of the future, Tyler Guyton. I know he played right tackle for the most part at Oklahoma. I think he can go over and play left side. Dane agrees on that front. But Guyton at 28 to Dallas. Chop Robinson out of Penn State, number 29 overall. Lions to Lions, right? Robinson's burst is so, that get off is so rare, I kind of feel like someone's going to gamble on him in round 1. Another trade. That's the last one, I promise. The Panthers jump up 3 spots in exchange for a 5th-round pick to take Georgia's Ladd McConkey. And I do think McConkey is a really good fit for what the Panthers need. They need someone who can run routes, get open, and offer some speed. McConkey does all of those things in a very impressive way. He is not, if you comp him to like Wes Welker, you're telling on yourself. That's not how he plays. He's more dynamic. Arizona takes Jordan Morgan. The arm length will make him a guard for some teams. It's sub 33 inches. That's unideal, but maybe you try him on the right side, given your issues over there for San Francisco. And the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy. I do think Worthy ends up going in round 1. We've put him in some round 1 mock drafts previously. Teams are still going to be scared by the fact that he's 165 pounds, but Al Davis is going to rise from the grave and make the Raiders take him at 13th overall or something. The speed and some of the run after catch stuff, I think, makes him more than John Ross. I think he's more like stretched out Marquise Brown. He's just a taller version of him. And he went in round 1. So grade the mock draft here from Dane Brugler. A, B, C, D, or F. Go ahead and sound off in the comments section. Before we go, the picks for teams that did not have a first rounder from Dane. I appreciate it. I do this too. That's how you should do it. Show some love to the Ravens and Browns, right? Kingsley Suamatia out of BYU. This is, left tackle or right tackle piece for the Ravens. He can do both. And Ricky Pearsall, out of Florida. No first-round pick for the Browns. But adding an athletic receiver makes a ton of sense for them. So grade that mock draft again one more time. Kevin K gave it an A because he loves all the trades that were a part of it. I do too. Mocking trades is not easy, but it sure as hell makes it fun. Chad Jones gives it a B. Tony gives it an A. I always appreciate Dane's explanations too, which I use them when needed, because got to have my opinion in there too. So grade it A, B, C, D, or F in the comments. If you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed. YouTube.com/chatsportstv for more free NFL free agency, draft, trade videos as well. No loop today. We'll get the VOD out a little bit earlier for you guys. Make sure you are subscribed. We will have some. Tony, I know you're subbed. If you're not already subscribed, I know you guys and Chad and Kevin and James and everyone else already is. But if you haven't already, make sure you do. Live free agency coverage getting going next week.